I'm ready.
Okay. Good afternoon all, and welcome to the November 17th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. And I ask you to join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I would ask that we take a moment of silence to remember all of our American troops who are serving overseas, who have served overseas and at home, and who have given their lives for our country. Thank you very much. Public comment. We have Lou Cataldo with us this afternoon. Lou?
Just a few quick reports. Number one, I'd like to bring your attention to the fact that I've been getting almost weekly calls from, which is all right, I'm not complaining, to the archivist for different information on Cape Cod and the history and so forth. And especially, I don't know, the Chamber of Commerce or somebody's funneling over to me all of the inquiries on JFK, that's where the statue is and about it. But that's all part of the work.
Now, is this related to the issue in the Armory?
No, related to, I suppose, people coming from out of state want information on it. Mm-hmm. And we've been averaging about once or two a week anyway. And people want historical background information and things like that nature.
Well, there was a big article in the Cape Cod Times a couple weeks ago about the 50th anniversary of JFK's, acceptance speech. When he got elected president at the Armory. So I think that was part of why that is, why that came about. That's why, and everybody recognizes you as the resident expert.
Well, they get referrals from the county as well, and they said get a hold of.
Oh, Lou.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's to be expected. But I think that mainly why I like to bring to your attention the progress that we're making up there at the archival. I think that I've got probably 80% of the material there. As you know, I've been very fortunate to have Tess Korchek. She used to, I think you may know her, she used to be an employee here one time. And we have at least 15 filing cabinets now full. I've also brought over a number of personal photographs that are some that I've taken and some that I acquired under JFK. We got quite a collection of that. And a lot of the historical aspects of various things, the recordings that I made. In other words, we're going back 60 years of all the various folklore and things of that nature. She's done a wonderful job. Tess has been great, non-paid of course, and we're going to be pretty soon in a position, if you'd like, to invite you up there and see the progress we're making. I've not brought down some of the miniature statues and so forth for the general public, because the general public does not have access to it. Which brings me up to why I'm here specifically. And some time ago, the commissioners had me go down below and make an assessment of the files that you have there, the archival files. And there are some things there that the general public probably would like to look at. And in keeping with, I think, a conversation I had with Mark relative to the possibility of land being available where the sheriff's house up there near the barn. And I have a person who, at one time at least, said that he would put up the money and construct a building. And I'm kind of wondering, whereas we're down below in a subterranean place, the public has no access to it. Right now, I think we're doing fine because we're cataloging, we're not only cataloging, we're going to make available, we're putting things on DVDs, they're going to be accessible to the public, and we're also expanding. I have over 500, I've got a library that'll amaze you that over the 60 years that I've acquired, both historical and otherwise, a lot of it historical stuff, that we would not have no place for. We have bookshelves there now where we're at, but it won't accommodate all this. And as well as some of your archival things downstairs that maybe get a little crowded, that could be incorporated into our Barnstable County archival setup that we have up here. And if, I think you and I touched on this, Mark, relative to the possibility of a land being available. I have the building built. It would be given to the county. Certainly I don't want it, but it'll be county property. We would construct it and have a sufficient room to put all of these things in. And I think the general public would really benefit by having a county archival, I don't know whether you want to call it a museum or whatever, repository for the general public. And we've been doing all of these things, as you know, from volunteers, and I think we can continue to do that. So basically, that's what I wanted to bring before you.
I don't think there's been any change in your feeling that, where the trailers were up there, which are now gone, that if Lou could come up with kind of the funding to build a, I don't know, 20 by 20 or whatever.
Something that
building
would have we'd have a room to put all of that I have, along with the many books. Cover what I have. You can cover the whole back side of this right here now, and then some. Along with the 15 filing cabinets that I have there now, bookshelves that are up there now, photographs that need to be displayed. You'll be amazed at some of the photographs that I have, not only historical but also the law enforcement aspect. I've got a lot of my law enforcement records there. Bearing in mind two aspects that I pride myself on a little bit. The county of Barnstable be it known that we were the first to make it known to the general world the possibility of having fingerprints computerized and made accessible as they are now. I have pioneered that, and I have all the documentation to prove it, and it was carried in the Christian Science Monitor. And then that's one aspect. And then be it known that Barnstable County is the first to do folklore recordings. I checked with the Library of Congress many years ago, and they were doing provincialisms of speech throughout the country, but nowhere. Of course, at that time, when I had one of the first tape recorders, it was a heavy doggone thing. So that Barnstable County, we've done two firsts. And so that's probably the reason for the archival and the importance of the archival center there. So that's my progress report to you. And
well, maybe you and I need to get together and talk about kind of where we are in terms of the building getting done. I know money was a bit of an impediment. Maybe we weren't quite sure about it. So maybe we need to talk about that. But
I think I can have two possible donors for this.
Yeah.
One that's already gave us a small amount.
Yeah.
We have a small amount. I don't know if you know this, but the LaRusso Fund gave us, I think, around 10,000 somewhere, which we were able to acquire some sophisticated equipment to transpose a lot of this material onto DVDs and whatever, and reproduce some of the films and negatives. I got countless negatives. I must have taken thousands of pictures over the years for the county. Got the county commissioners of the past and so forth.
Now, Lou, the other thing you had mentioned, and I mentioned to the commissioners last week, was your invitation to come up and see. But now it sounds like maybe you think you're not ready.
The only reason I say that is I got probably almost 80%, but I'd like to have a little bit more there for you to see.
All right.
You can come anytime you want.
Well, I was going to suggest that they come maybe in December 15th. But it's up to you. If you think you're not cleaned up yet,
I'd like to put our best foot forward.
If I can ask, I know originally we had looked at that space and we were looking at the first floor, and it still had a handicap accessible impediment there. And that's been moved now. It's more of the health department and
that's all the health department.
All the health
staff
department
are in there. Lou's directly below them, right where the entranceway is.
I remember, and I think that that's a great space for, as you say, like a repository where if somebody wanted to go and do research, and once we
can I just add, we actually looked at creating a separate entrance for Lou right there on the corner, which would be handicapped accessible and the whole thing. It had a cost associated that we didn't have, and I think the person who was potentially putting up some of the money for that was a little bit reluctant to do it, I guess, on our building, and that's fine. We understand that, which is where we kind of resurrected. I think Lou's going even farther back. They were going to build a building somewhere else, and we don't have to talk about where. And that's when it kind of reoccurred to us, well, maybe we could put that building that you had envisioned, which is kind of your own separate space, here up on the top of the hill.
As it stands now, the general public cannot have access to it.
Right.
And that'd be a shame. Right now, it's all right because we're categorizing and putting things in shape. But I think in another year or so, or even less, we'd like to have the general public. I haven't even had trouble getting up and down those stairs, and we've had to lug filing cabinets and a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, I think if December 15th is a good date, that we should go back up there. And
okay,
and have another conversation about.
I'd like to have had more things there.
I don't think it's to see the finished product, Lou. I think it's just to kind of get a feeling for what you're doing.
Oh, all right, sure.
And how it does. I remember, to me, I think that is. I agree with you. I think if you want to invite the public, you want a place that's inviting, and even though that's a very nice room, it is sub-level. And
it's not built for that.
Yeah, it's not built for that. And it would be nice to have a room that had, like say we just went through the 50th anniversary of John Kennedy doing his acceptance speech. Like you could highlight that in a certain month, or a certain month to Mercy Otis, or a certain month to Lauren Otter, and highlight different focal points, and then they can be referred. And also, as we're upgrading our IT departments and stuff, this is another database that can be accessible to public for records. And once they're all there, it's just a matter of
and I'd like to install a couple of booths, so that the folklore history that people want that have been taped.
Right, they can listen.
And they can listen to either the tape or the DVDs or what have you.
You must have gone to the Pilgrim Museum in Plymouth on Main Street, or the Historical Society.
The Plymouth Museum.
Yeah, what about the Plymouth?
That have been there to visit the museum.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there.
And that's beautiful. And I think.
Ianos, a little story, if you got a second. They had the remains of Ianos that was found here years ago, and I sought them, tried to get them, and it was spirited out by James from Chatham. Went down there and he grabbed them, and his remains now are somewhere buried in Chatham. But I acquired, for Tales of Cape Cod, 7.5 acres of land, which I gave to Tales of Cape Cod, and it's the site where Ianos remains were.
Well, I think
Pilgrims are still stealing stuff from Cape Cod. Fed up with the corn, and then they never stop.
There's tremendous rich history there that's unbelievable.
And just seeing that gives you the flavor of what a building up here would look like, and how it would really benefit the community and be an attraction.
I think the county would really be enhanced by having something like that.
So we'll come and visit on the 15th.
Okay.
How's that? And then we can maybe move a little farther forward, or further forward in the plants.
If you know me from my past experiences and everything, I try to do things, but it doesn't involve a lot of money, especially to the county. Most everything I've done has been with very little money. I've taken the oldest wooden jail in the country and had that moved from the site there, and it's sitting over there now. And the town of Barnstable is dragging their feet and doing the necessary repairs that need to be done. The oldest wooden jail in the country, and if you haven't One of these days, I'd like to take
I've got
you
it.
all, if you have a minute, and see some of the historical spots and some of the things that I pride myself in having been involved in it. Now we have a museum up there, Coast Guard Heritage Museum, that's terrific. And if you have the time sometime, I'd like to take you all up there.
Well, maybe we could make a little heritage tour.
We could
Yeah.
do that on the
15th.
15th. We don't have
Yeah.
anything else
Because it would
scheduled.
be
We could also kind of look at the
comparison.
site where you might put the
Yeah.
building.
What
Just that-
time?
The 15th is probably, is that an assembly day? I'll have to look. It'll either be in the morning or the
It is an
afternoon.
assembly.
Maybe on the first and then on the...
First on the 15th, so it'll be in the afternoon. We'll do it on the afternoon.
Sure, your pleasure.
How about that, okay?
Okay.
We'll be
It's a
in
date.
touch.
All right,
Lou,
thank you.
thanks for coming in.
Hey, you're
As
welcome.
always, it's good to see
You
you.
look pretty good, Lou. You feeling better?
Yeah, you look good.
I can't say 100% that I do. I wish I had 10 more years younger.
Oh, you'll be around here 10 more years.
Yeah,
No,
No
but going up and
problem.
down those bloody stairs is
Yeah, it's the stairs that kill you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Thanks
Very
very
good to
much,
see
all of
you.
you. God love.
Bye, Lou.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll make sure we get that on the...
Yeah, I have a whole list here of what we're doing over the next
Here's a
few.
guy that has contributed so much of his time and energy to, to cataloging everything that goes on in the county. There was a book that, that he was responsible for putting together, and I don't think that book has ever been updated. That was done about 20 years ago?
It was done for the 300 and blah, blah, blah anniversary of the county.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful resource. If you ever have an opportunity, I think we have it, over here.
There's a few copies around, yeah.
You know, I would think we should do something to recognize that contribution that he's made while he's here, and not.
I want
Much
to drop. We
better
can
to
drop a
do it
little
Yeah, yeah.
than every
proclamation.
It's much. It's much. I think
make,
he'll appreciate it.
Yeah, well,
December
he deserves
15th,
it.
Lou
He does.
Cataldo
He does.
Day.
I think we should.
We could do that.
What date?
Martin,
Oh, make
make
it.
that-
December 15th. We can do it too while we're meeting with them and
What a
doing
great
a little
idea.
heritage tour.
Make that,
And then make that at the assembly. We
Yeah,
could,
you can actually, yeah. If he wants to come over to the assembly, you can maybe do the
Do it
award
to
over
Crane
there,
or
or you can
something.
do it here. You can do it both.
well,
Sure.
we're on tape at both places, so we can
Yeah.
do it both places.
Yeah, I think it would be good.
Sure. So just to go back, so this is the upcoming schedule. 12/1, we have the Human Rights Committee coming in, just to update you on what's going on.
Okay.
12/8, I was going to do a retirement funding schedule presentation because we're meeting next week with Kathy Riley and we'll have our funding schedule finalized.
And on the first, we're also doing the results of the RFQ for the assessment.
We're doing the
Maggie's
county
for the-
assessment. Yep, yep, those are back.
So
So
I gotta talk
exactly
about
what
that
time are we meeting on the first?
the first is an assembly meeting, so we would meet in the afternoon.
Well, when, like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock?
We haven't that time yet.
We haven't set
So
a time.
you know, you got the Human
I think
Rights Committee and the assessment. So I'd probably say
One.
1 maybe,
I would say 1 o'clock on the
Yeah.
first.
just to give you guys enough time. And then on the
You can sort of plan around it if you know we're meeting here.
Yeah, and then on the 8th, I could do I'll do the PowerPoint presentation on the funding schedule stuff. And I'll also meet with the Nantucket Selectmen on the 15th, so I'll be leaving for that. On the 8th, we can do it anytime you want, but normally we do that in the morning. Then the 15th, we can do the Lou Cataldo thing, so we could do that, do a little walk around. We can do the Tracer Museum over here. We can go up and see his spot. We can walk
Jail.
over here.
Yeah,
So.
maybe we should do a little something. Yeah. Make
And
it
we'll
like
do a
little
plaque for him,
celebration.
so you can meet here if you want. Give him the plaque; he'll be thrilled. Make it Lou Cataldo Day, and then you can do that again in the assembly if he wants to go.
The Christmas reception is the following week.
And then
right?
then the holiday luncheon is the 22nd.
Yeah.
And that will start at noon. So I would suggest on that day, start your meeting at 11:30. Do your stuff, do your business, and then we'll have the lunch, noon to 2. So that's what I had upcoming.
All right, now we're going back to wastewater.
I think don't we need a report from you as to what happened to the litigation management committee?
Well, we do the other piece first.
Okay.
What's the other piece?
That's scheduled.
Oh.
Whatever we had
Well,
scheduled for.
one of the things I think we talked about after we went to the selectmen's and town councilors meeting was that there appeared to be some support for us looking at our next steps. We had proposed a symposium, if you recall, and there seemed to be, at least what I was hearing, there was some support for looking from the selectmen that were attending the that association meeting, to looking to the county as taking over the initiative, if you will. And the two things that came up as to whether or not we should think about going back to the symposium, or looking at what might have been suggested, looking at another venue for the peer review. So having said that, I think that we need to hear from the town of Orleans as to whether or not they're they're backing off of the what were they asking for, the NAS? I believe that has happened. So I think we have an opportunity to exercise some initiative and restore their momentum. Is it leadership?
It's leadership.
Okay. Well, I always have problems with that. I mean, I look to you two for leadership.
Right.
I'm just a spear carrier in the...
Well, we also have an email from Larry Valentine, chairman of the collaboration.
Hey, Andrew, long time no see.
Gee, and look who appears.
And he pretty much summarized the same thing since the meeting, that nobody really wants to wait till July, that they want the county to take some leadership here and to get the process moving forward. So
Can I give a little segue?
you can.
From the and you attended some of this steering committee where we discussed this before the Selectmen's Association, and the feeling that as we go forward, I think it's a good thing to, and I think it was a general consensus, and Andy can give his view on this, that there's a perception among some that if the county does do this, and that's why I posed that question I kind of put out there with the selectmen, like, there is this feeling like whatever we do, we could put out $150,000 doing this symposium, and just because we did it, it's not going to have credibility. And the selectmen didn't seem to have that in general. So it is some of these...
Or in particular.
It's these, yeah, I know, or in particular. It seems more like these concerned citizen groups. So there was discussion that maybe we should bring them in and have them, sort of, just for a matter of transparency and going forward and in good faith, bring them into the setup and the agenda of that symposium.
Yeah.
Just to kind of run things by. And this is...
I have a great problem with that. We are elected to serve this particular
I understand.
purpose.
I'm not saying we're not going to do it. I'm saying involve them.
I would welcome
their
opinion,
input. Like
or
people
any
like
citizen.
the group that presented at the Selectmen's Association, the peer review
Oh,
citizens,
the
or
validation committee
validation, or in the town of Barnstable has a concerned citizen. So if you get sort of a member from some of them, just to show you that this is really all above board and that all of these people are very independent, and so to assure them before the fact, so that it may go better. And there was consensus. There was a general feeling that, I can't say consensus, but that is probably a good way to go, or else you could be just, they're just going to throw something at you in the end.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
This was discussed first at the steering committee, the governing board meeting,
okay.
among all of the
this
towns.
was before the...
Selectmen's
This was
Association.
last Wednesday.
And also,
I was gonna
we
say
did
you
take
were
a
meeting
vote
at
from
5
all
in
the
the
towns
morning
that
or
they did
anything like
more or
that.
less support the symposium as opposed to the NAS or another review. Right. So with that, Andrew, you
Well, I
can
think-
contradict me if you wish.
Never. Clarify, not contradict. I think what we're working on now, once the letter went out from you last week, is that we would go ahead and finish the work that we had started with the TAC and finalize the symposium agenda and put together a roster of potential participants. And then there was consensus, I think, at the governing board meeting that providing the boards of selectmen and some opportunity for public review to review that before it happened and to solicit some comment from boards of selectmen and others about it. So, we're going to be, I think we can probably nail down what we want to do and present, certainly before the end of the year or before the holiday season gets too thick, and then run it out to the selectmen. It's interesting to see sort of what happens coming out of that Selectmen's Association meeting, since obviously they're all there kind of representing themselves, even though they're selectmen, nobody's speaking for their boards. So you've got a letter back to Orleans. I think you'll probably get a reaction, a formal reaction from Orleans. I think they're meeting tonight.
Well, I thought it was quite clear that that Marge Pulcher, who was the chair of Orleans, said that David Dunford, although a selectman, was not representing the board.
Right.
I thought it was important to hear.
Yeah, no, so I'd say you got a lot of individuals who expressed, I agree with you, I think a lot of the people that spoke up at that Selectmen's Association meeting were saying, why are we going to wait? Let's just get on with what the county proposed to do. But you still kind of need some official, you got 9 boards of selectmen that right now are on record going this way. And, you suggested going this way down the center of the road. And I think, there needs to be a little, I think we need to, do what we need to do to be ready so that when they've had a little bit of time to react to what you've put out there as a rational path to proceed, to get the reactions to that. And,
I think that's a useful, direction. However, I guess Larry, the sense I got from Larry Valentine's letter was, what do we think about this, the suggestion of looking at another venue to perform the peer review? Mm-hmm. And is that, are you dismissing that and saying we should go through?
No, I think we're approaching it. I think we're approaching it exactly the same way we approaching the NAS, which was, if we're going to be the sponsors of a review, that looking to any organization that has value added that they can contribute to it is a worthy thing to do. And so, Larry Cole has raised 2 new associations that may have some ability to facilitate, improve it, conduct it on our behalf, whatever, and we'll talk to them.
Well, is there a possibility that group that's been suggested, and seems to have some support, as far as at least an apparent credibility with with people, that could be somehow incorporated into our symposium idea? Because I view that as an opportunity not only to have let's say an addressing of the the issue with regard to reviewing the model that's been presented, but also an opportunity to, in a public forum, to vet out let's say different opinions with regard to why there's support and why there is not support for the approach that's been taken so far. And the underlying part of this, which has been a continuing concern for me, is that
I'm sorry.
Okay, we've spent a significant amount of money to bring the process to this point, under the direction of let's say people who have been identified as being professional experts in the area that have been put in place by the Commonwealth. And if there's any time when we should get some, let's say some degree of why don't the people who paying the bill, the taxpayers, if they don't have confidence in what these experts who have been hired to perform the service have, then I think that we then have to engage this thing that whatever we do, if there's no confidence in the people that have been hired to do this, then there's an issue of whether or not the governor should put in place people that they would accept. And I don't know how the hell that happens, because at the end of the day, if you're going against what I'd call, let's say, an agenda or resistance, that whatever would support the resistance would continue to be there. But I've been very disturbed over the fact that I've had confidence in the what I call the competence of the people that have been supporting this so far, and I guess that confidence issue has led to this this other business about why is the science being questioned, and what we're talking about is essentially a measurement modality at a particular time and place based upon a condition that exists at that time. That doesn't address the science that's involved. It just addresses the measurement at that time. And 3 days later, the measurement might be different, but the science and the measurement methodology would stay the same.
I still have to say that I don't understand why people are so stuck on the issue of the science. Because even looking at the presentation from the validation committee, they showed a point in time where the nitrogen in Pleasant Bay was X amount. And over time, it's been declining. So to me, you know there's nitrogen there. The question is, how did it get there? Is it continuing to come to that particular watershed? Is it likely that there will always be nitrogen flowing into that watershed over X period of time? If that's the case, then you look at, all right, what are the sources of that nitrogen getting there? And if they're residences because of septic systems or cesspools, that's one reason. Is if there's some other source of the nitrogen. To me, it's important to find out what is contributing to nitrogen being in that watershed. Then the time should be spent on looking at solutions to remove it, whether it's innovative alternatives like the composting toilets, or whether it's permeable reactive barriers, if that's a solution, whether it's sewering, whether it's whatever it is. We should be focused on what the solutions are. Then when we find out what the solutions are, then you have to find out, if you treat it, where do you put it? And that's a huge problem, because there isn't any land on Cape Cod to speak of in many areas where you could actually discharge it. Then you can't discharge it in zones of contribution to water, to clean water, drinking water. You have to find some other place to put it. So I think everybody's so hung up on the numbers and the science that they're forgetting the huge issues that they have facing them in terms of, how do you deal with the nitrogen coming in? Can you stop it? Maybe not. So if you can't, then how do you treat it? And then what do you do with what you treat? And I would think that that's where we should be focusing, unless I'm way out.
No, you're right. I think that
You use the word contribution
Yeah,
at the selectmen's meeting, which I think is really where we could have some effect, because if we can reduce or eliminate the contribution, then we've addressed the affect of people and in commercial activity.
Yeah, because the next steps is, once you do all that and you've determined what your treatment solutions are going to be, then you use the adaptive management tools to help you, manipulate
we haven't even gotten
it.
to the hard part.
And then the monitoring. And then you come back to the science again to help you monitor. But sometimes the naked eye will tell you whether there's nitrogen there or not. And if your solutions are working and the eelgrass is growing, or it wasn't growing for 40 years, then you know that your treatment system is working.
Right.
So I don't know how you get that across. If that seems like a reasonable interpretation, then why can't reasonable people accept that?
It's too big
Don't get me all worked up
question.
again, huh?
You guys had a long night last night.
I know, I had a very long night, so
You're still
I
on the
should
roll
get
from
off
that.
my...
Yeah. I mean, I think, the discussion, for whatever combination of reasons, the discussion's gotten sidetracked by this issue about, validity of the science. And I think that, some of what you heard at the Selectmen's Association meeting, I think validated the science. That, Pleasant Bay report, not to get sidetracked on it, the Pleasant Bay report that Brian House did said, water quality is going to happen this way unless you have a breach open up roughly where it did, and then we predict water quality is going to behave in the following way. And guess what? It did.
Did.
Right.
Yeah. And they'll
so-
have it again.
them
They'll
all
reverse
kind
it.
of
Right, so
accurate.
kind of to my mind, that sort of, that was as good a validation exercise as you could get. And I thought there was a good point raised that, and I think it's the same issue in Rock Harbor, it's then a question of, not the science, but how the science plays into the regulatory world and what you're being required to do. If, if water quality in the outer portions of Pleasant Bay today are in reasonably good shape, which it appears that that they are contributed to by the breach, and we expect that breach to be open for a certain period of time. Does that mean you have to put the control measures in place that affect that portion of the bay now, or are you better spending that time and effort treating those areas that are continuing to have water quality problem and put the other piece later because you've got some time? Perfectly valid public policy discussion to have. Rock Harbor, highly manipulated system, dredged by people, the changes in the physical layout of the place contribute to the water quality problems, make it a little bit harder to achieve better water quality. Perfectly legitimate discussion to say, are we going to expect the Rock Harbor Boat Basin to achieve the same water quality as we would some other bay or some other place we're trying to reestablish scallop habitat? Maybe not. Perfectly valid public policy discussion to have. Neither of those discussions have any bearing on whether the underlying science is any good.
That's right.
And the science discussion has been allowed to become the tail that wags the dog and a big distraction. And I think the challenge that we've been trying to lead people through in the last several months is, how do you put aside, how do you have a fair discussion about the science and then have it conclude whatever it concludes and then move ahead? And that's really what we're trying to do here. And, I think you're right to feel some, frustration or confusion about why are we stuck here now when we have all these larger questions to resolve that we haven't even begun to get a handle on. And that's,
The big question is
you're
coming
right.
up with an appropriate financial model to support this. I think this is where we need to concentrate.
If we were arguing about spending $5, we would be arguing about the science. We're not talking about $5. We're talking about $5 billion.
But that's why.
And so you're having a big argument about it.
Okay.
So
That's
That's
the
why we
answer
have
to
to come
your
up with
question.
with
that's the
an
answer to your
appropriate
question.
financial
It's all
model.
about
Well,
the money.
it's all about the money.
It is
That's
all about
very
the money.
It's all
true.
about the money and who pays and when they pay.
Right. And
Because the validation committee did make that point. Well, that's because what they did in their business as chemical engineers and electrical engineers, or whatever they were, is that they had to absolutely validate the science before a dollar could be spent, because that's the kind of work they were in. And you didn't spend the money till you're absolutely sure that the money spent was going to do exactly what was being proposed. And I think they're looking at this issue in the same way, that you don't even think about spending the money until you're absolutely sure that your numbers are right, because you don't want to go down the road and spend, what, $600 million or whatever, and find out that, the science was all wrong, we shouldn't have done that. Guess what? The nitrogen's not coming from above or from the land nearby, it's actually coming from the ocean, which is what they thought in Pleasant Bay, that the nitrogen...
Right, that was just kind of silly.
I know, that was...
I mean,
Well, anyway,
that picture showed, on its face that the human contribution of nitrogen in the system was 0.5%. And,
Wait a minute, it might have been at that particular narrowly identified point, it might have been 0.5%.
No.
We have 2/3 of the coastline of Massachusetts.
No, my point is this, is that if 99.5% of the nitrogen in the ecological system at any point in time is driven by natural systems, then, number one, why was water quality ever any good? Okay? Because that nitrogen theoretically was there today, it was there yesterday, it was there 1,000 years ago. And if we are actually chasing 0.5% of the problem, then we're idiots.
right.
Okay? And the reality is just there are different forms of nitrogen. And, one type of nitrogen drives this problem. And 85% of that portion of the nitrogen is septic. And that's what the reports say. 85% of the controllable load. Yes, we know a lot of nitrogen rains down from atmospheric deposition, and we can't control that in Massachusetts, let alone an individual town or a county. And so that's not part of the controllable nitrogen discussion. The amount that what we can control is what we put on and in the ground, and that's what we can manage. And that's what the emphasis of this project is on managing, and that's what we've got our focus on. Rightfully so.
If I can weigh in here a little bit, I want to get back to that meeting that we had, because I do have a letter from them and I'm going to run this by you. It was good that we had this meeting with Brian Howes and Andy with this group down in Orleans. And it was because they are stuck around the classification of these two waters of body, whatever.
Water body.
Yes, water bodies, and so they're saying, well, see, this is just proving our point. And that discussion led to Dr. House saying, I predict, the model predicted it. I actually stated a couple of years ago that this was happened, and you'd have a window, and I would support the town if they wanted to change that classification. But the town never took them up on it. And so they said, would you help us if we were able to do it? And he said, sure, I'll offer any help I can. And I'm sure even the county would, but you have to get the towns on board. I mean, you as citizens going up to DEP is going to do nothing. So first you have to get the towns of Eastham and Orleans to recognize this. So they sent me minutes of that discussion, and how they framed the consensus part was Dr. Howes and Commissioner Lyons stated their support for addressing the readjustment of the Orleans Pleasant Bay TMDLs with the DEP in view of a much lower bioactive nitrogen loading, and that we also stated our support for addressing the Rock Harbor quality classification. Now, I had talked to Ed Daly after the meeting, and we discussed these 2 points of support, and I said, you know, look, we recognize this, and I said...
Now, he's the member of the
he was the gentleman that actually presented
Right.
this.
So
Wait,
everybody
let me finish.
understand who you're talking
So
about.
what I said is, if you want to go ahead and do that, then that's your exercise, and, you know, we're not going to, you know, I have no issue with that. However, if those 2 issues of even, it's almost semantics to me, because it really does have nothing to do with the larger issue or the model, is going to hold up or be held, you know, from your group as a reason not to go forward, there is no support there. So in response to this, I haven't sent it yet. I wanted to run it by you today, and of course I didn't have a chance to do it out there, but my response... No, some of those...
And we didn't agree to support
Basically, I said
anything
I did not agree. I said we would support a discussion. I said the county may, and I put in parentheses, I am one of 3 commissioners, support a discussion on those topics, but not at the expense of going forward for other towns, for you or other towns, as that results in higher costs for each of these towns, as expressed by Larry Cole at the Selectmen Association. Harwich took a hiatus, they took a step back, didn't do anything for a couple of years, and it ended up costing them more to go forward once it was. So that was basically my response. So I just want to, I'll send it to you before I...
Well, I think it's, well...
So I just wanted to let you know that that was being said, but I don't like the way you put that we're supporting that in paper.
Are we having side discussions and agreements with this group?
No, it's not an agreement. I'm making a clarification,
Oh, okay.
because if I say sure, then he's going to hold this up as though, yeah, we got the county supporting
County
this,
agreed
and
to
we
do
don't.
this. That's
No,
not,
No, that's not what I'm
No.
agreeing.
No.
I know. That's why I'm clarifying it.
Yeah, the problem is, you know, you have a discussion, and you open up, throw around a lot of ideas, and all of a sudden it's,
All of a sudden they are holding
that
on
idea
this way,
becomes
you're
something
supporting
that
us.
you...
Well, if you're talking to a group with an agenda, you know, you go there at your peril. That's why I suggest you have a member of the select board, you know, at that meeting, because since they were, the issue was dealing with Orleans, and it was a group from Orleans, and there was a member of the select board that is not in, that does not have the support of the other members of the select board. I think I had suggested that you invite members of the select board to be there at the meeting, if for no other reason, to avoid a situation where you get quoted in the minutes, which becomes a matter unless you,
Right.
you know, unless you say, correct the minutes and say, that's not what I said or what I meant. And again, this has a life of its own now, doesn't it?
I'm going to clarify that position and send it back. So there's no life to it yet, because they're not, at least they gave me the benefit of reviewing that and putting my say in on it. So I will give them
So
that.
we're going to finish up doing the...
So, yeah,
I
so
suggested that
Symposium.
they ran the meeting.
We'll finalize it in the next
for
several
the
weeks.
early part of next year?
Yeah, and send it around to the towns, and, you know, maybe we'll hold a meeting where people can come and say something, you know, give us comments. We'll run some process to run it through the selectmen. You know, and then we'll get to, you know, I think what we should do is wait until we get to January and see what kind of reaction we get from the towns. If all of a sudden the 9 towns that signed on with Orleans, led by Orleans, come back and say, we've rethought this, and we think, you know, we should proceed with what the county did, then I think, you know, we could say, let's not wait till July 1. Or if they all say, yeah, Mel, maybe, let's let it run till July 1, see if we can get the money for the, you know, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they're going to let it go, they're not going to let it go. It's a bunch of boards.
Okay, what I heard at the Selectmen's Association meeting was that July 1st is much, I think it was at Lewis.
Yeah.
It was much too soon to think that they would get any what I call significant response in order to support that. And I think he made a clear statement that we should go ahead, you know, that the county should reassume the leadership of it. The only thing I would ask is that in this, let's say, in your put together a proposal, that you give some reference to how the peer review issue would be, you know, would be factored into this whole, you know, to this whole process that we're proposing, whether it would be a direct part of it or whether it would be identified as being separate, just so that we're addressing it, because
No, I mean, the core of what we're putting together is the peer review.
Is there a peer review?
I mean, that's the
because
that's the
you know,
substance
address
of it.
Woodman
the
from
concern.
Sandwich also
Yeah.
expressed the fact that she had supported the letter because she thought the NAS was just going to do a peer review,
Right.
and felt that that was a useful thing to do, but at this point was withdrawing from it. I believe that Ed McManus had said also, the selectman from Harwich,
he did.
had also said at the Selectmen's Association meeting that he was going to introduce a motion at their meeting on Monday, and I don't know whether that happened, that basically supported the county reassuming as part of it.
Yeah,
Well,
I think you've laid out a pretty good path for people to follow, and now I think we just need to be a little bit patient and let them give them a little bit of time and see how it all sorts itself out.
I agree.
Because I think it would be a tactical mistake to sort of say, okay, we laid out this path, and then we've heard very good feedback from the selectmen that have read the letter and thought about it, and so we're going to jump ahead and reinitiate what we're doing without giving their boards time to kind of catch up to the issue. I think we have a really good opportunity to get a number of boards of selectmen on record as supportive of the county's leadership in this, and we should let that happen.
Yeah. The, the other thing I was thinking too about the towns that have either completed their draft management plan, which I guess would be Chatham, Orleans.
Well, Chatham's is in and final.
Has it been, and it's been approved by the state.
Yeah.
Now, did they use the TMDLs? So
Yeah, they got a
there's
$43 million
That's
construction
right.
contract that was
I'm
predicated on them.
I'm asking questions just to get it out there.
Yes.
So I think we have towns who either have submitted their draft plans or are very close to submitting their draft plans. They're using the TMDLs in their plans. They're working. They've been able to define all those contribution points and develop solutions and the state's approving all that.
Yep.
I think that carries a fair amount of weight, I would think, for other
and-
towns to say, well, hey, if these towns are going forward with their plans and they're being recognized and approved, then there must be something right
And
about
in addition, not only was Chatham approved, Chatham's approval was reaffirmed
Yeah.
in light of some citizen-based challenges to the legitimacy of the process. So it was a very extensive second review of their program at the Secretary's office that came out with a resounding vote of confidence in the work that the town had done. Chatham, so they've moved ahead. Orleans' Board of Selectmen has voted to finalize and submit their plan. Then a number of other communities are in various stages in doing their planning. And everybody's using the science and the technical information as it exists today, because it's the best work that there is out there, and there's no other competing alternative work that they could use as a substitute.
As one of the scientists was quoted who responded to, or someone quoted a scientist who was responding to Larry Ballantyne, I think, that the science is correct enough for the towns to move forward. Now, I thought that was a pretty reasonable statement to make. I mean, it's not exact. Cannot be an exact science, but
No,
it's correct enough so
we're
that
all-
you
we're
know
all-
where to go.
We were all taught when we studied science that engineers apply science based upon what they know at a point. In other words, they have a requirement, or let's say a responsibility to move ahead based upon what they know.
Right.
And what we know so far gives me confidence that we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm feeling very, very positive about where we are today.
And the term we've used is that science is directionally correct. There's nothing,
Exactly.
not even these refinement issues wouldn't change where you're headed. They may alter the last 10 or 15% of what you do, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about getting people taking the first steps towards, taking the first bite, the first 20%, the first 30%, the first 40%. And then that leaves a whole bunch more that's pretty certain. And then when you get to the end, 10, 15, 20 years from now, you should be looking at it afresh. So that's where we are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other any questions from the press on this discussion? Since
I did want to touch on the litigation.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
management
Oh, yeah, the
planning,
litigation
just a little
management.
bit, without going too deep into what shouldn't really be executive session stuff, to just kind of talk about and get on the record what I got out of the litigation management meeting on the Anderson Krieger issue. One was we agreed to proceed kind of jointly, the county and the commission, in lockstep, and if you correct me if I'm missing anything.
Keep going.
I'll keep going. And I think that was kind of the basis of that was in general agreement by the committee members, that's how we should proceed in lockstep, county and the commission together. That Andrew and Paul would be the day-to-day managers of the litigation team at Anderson and Krieger, and that they would report back to the litigation management committee on a periodic basis. And I say periodic because right now we don't know how often that would be. Quarterly, it might need to be monthly at some point.
And of course, Troy's part of the litigation.
Troy, obviously.
So that, I think that would represent our interest from a legal point of view. But was it clear that the three of us would have the ultimate say with regard to this?
You are the ultimate overseers of the Anderson Krieger contract. That's
Now,
right.
do we need to affirm that, or just
I think we did. Didn't we do that last?
You voted to make Anderson Krieger special counsel.
Right,
That's
right. So
I
we've
think
done-
that's all you need to
That's
do,
all we
as long
need
as
to
you're comfortable with kind of the directions
Well, I think
taken.
that's a good report.
Great.
So we're making progress there.
You satisfied with that?
Perfect.
Very good.
Okay.
That's nothing. I have nothing else on
No,
that issue.
great. Good.
Thanks again very
Thank
much.
you.
We'll see you back soon.
See you soon.
Please, I hope not.
Andrew, you're always welcome.
He is, but
See, Bill wants me here.
then we gotta pay
Yeah,
for it.
like,
Yeah, he doesn't know.
You're paying either way.
That's true.
I didn't have any questions on the, I had a question on, was it a 9 and 10 on the Lyme disease stuff on the needs action?
Summary of action?
Summary of action. The question was not that we were doing it, but this is a continuing issue, and a continuing concern of mine as to where, are we making any progress on this? We've had some turnover in the committee. Was it Brenda?
Yeah, Brenda Payne.
Brenda Bolin.
Bolin.
Poland, who's been the long-suffering, the long-serving, sort of prime mover in this. Are we making progress on it? I guess is what I'm saying, because I don't think we've gotten to the point where we get what I'd call universal support for the treatment of Lyme disease. We still need to continue to measure it.
Well, I would defer answer that question to Bill Clark and George, kind of Hoyfelder jointly. Bill Clark especially, maybe we need to ask Bill to come in, kind of update us on the Lyme disease.
Well,
Maybe
that's a
Dave
good idea.
Simser as well.
Right, yeah.
I would say that's kind of a two-part question, some of which we control, maybe some of which we don't control as much. I would say awareness of Lyme disease has certainly grown immensely from where we were years ago when we started the Lyme disease project. I hear people talk about, anecdotally, that the deer they should be eradicated because they carry Lyme disease. People all know that, right? They're big rats and stuff. Yeah. So you hear about this kind of stuff all the time. So people are very aware that Lyme disease is something we have to be worried about.
Is that whenever I bring, I've had them on my television program. What I'm really astonished at is that every time I bring them on, it's like, this is new stuff. I hear from people, well, we didn't, we weren't aware of it. So apparently it's a need for persistently reminding people of it. And by the way, this warm weather that we've had is of a special concern because all of a sudden they start to appear.
Yeah, the ticks are much more active here.
I remember
Right.
picking up a tick when I was putting out Christmas lights one year because it happened to be especially warm. So it's not something that we can, forget about any time of the year.
But I would be happy to get.
I just think it would be a good idea if we could do that.
If I can also,
Yes.
just to, if you remember last legislative session, there was language and legislation going forward. Was it for funding, Mark, that they were driving for? But they were very successful in that, and she asked me to write to the governor about it. And I forget, isn't it awful? I feel like Patrick Green was asked about why he didn't support education, but it was, so that was in a sense a success because it was it was a group effort from the TIC management and all of the cooperative and anyone who has any knowledge and stake in it. So they all weighed in, and that legislation did get passed. So that was a victory that did occur. So there was some, that type of progress. And
But the fact
Just
that the
to let you know,
funding
I've been treated twice this fall for tick bites. I've had 2 tick bites and have been on
you're a
antibiotics.
tick magnet.
That's because you.
I
live
am
in
a
the
tick
woods.
maggot as opposed to
Magnet,
any other
magnet,
magnet of
not
any
magnet.
other kind, unfortunately. So,
Okay, that's a good idea. Shall we move on to the agenda?
So,
Okay, well,
yeah, and those 2 that Bill is referring to, I think is what Sheila is referring to, is that's the EPA grant
Yeah,
that
the
we got
EPA grant,
for
right,
Lyme disease
right.
research. And those are for 2 service contracts for people to help with that.
Well, then with that, I'll move the,
Oh, summary of actions.
Right.
Is there a second?
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, none opposed, 3 in favor. Motion carries. For the record. Now a tedious discussion on our agenda.
well, we're
This
making
is,
progress.
yeah, we're getting
Budget.
there.
So now you want to talk
the
about the
budget.
agenda?
Yes.
Agenda stuff?
Please.
So,
The
okay, I
agenda.
put together for
Good,
a
we have
draft
people
for
who can
discussion, sort of a new agenda format, which hopefully you'll like. I will preface it by saying Bob Troy has not reviewed this yet. So we might have to make some adjustments based on what he might say. So what I did was I took today's agenda and the supplementary piece to it, that summary of items, and I looked at what would it look like if we were doing it kind of the new way that we have kind of talked about. And that basically is to include on here anything that you will need to deal with kind of in open session, which I've included all of the votes. So under the Commissioner's action items, where before it just had those 3 bullets that said summary of actions, blah, 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 now it says the first one you'd vote to approve the minutes of either your previous meeting or previous meetings, depending on what you have in front of you. Then you would take the votes of the board of the regional commissioners. So separate from what you did just previously with all the summary of items where you approved them, you take these votes, and those are all the votes that are on this week's summary of items, and those are things that you have to vote on specifically. For example, out-of-state travel requests, prepayments you have to vote on, fund balance transfers you have to vote on. What else is in here? A prepayment, and to establish new funds for a couple of things that are on there. So under our new format, instead of doing the summary of item sheets, you take all of the votes that we'd have to do for that week separately
Right.
and distinctly. And those would be published on the public agenda.
Right.
Because those are votes that you need to take.
All right, so in terms of general agenda, we have a start time, we don't have an end time. We have a meeting location, we have topic headings, we've included some topic detail for each heading, which I think has been missing.
That is
I'd say we
Yeah.
indicate the time that each topic is expected to last.
Well, here's an interesting one. I'm glad you brought that up, Bill. So you're right, on the individual topic things, I added a couple of things. On the discussion on wastewater, one was the report from the county administrator on the litigation management committee meeting. So I did that. However, I didn't know that you had in mind to talk specifically to Andrew about the whole symposium process. So that brings up these kind of conundrums that we're going to run into, and I have a couple of conundrums here as well that I'm going to ask you guys to sign today. So this is the kind of things that we have to kind of keep in mind, because they're going to come up, and they're going to come up all
And
the
that
time.
speaks to the point that, that we should indicate which meeting participants are expected to be the main topic participants.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And because I would say the good
Oh,
news
you
on the
mean-
Andrew one, you didn't take any action. He didn't ask you to do anything. It was just a general discussion. It
more
was on the
of a report.
wastewater
It was
topic.
really a follow-up
It was a
and a
follow-up.
wrap-up of
Yeah.
the
Because we were all there.
So I think we're
selectmen's
okay,
meeting.
but I just want to kind of notify you guys these things are going to happen.
I agree, and I think that this is better, because when I saw the agenda and I knew we were going to be talking about it, and it said discussion on wastewater, I'm thinking,
Yeah, like
what are we
Could
going to
be anything.
discuss? Yeah, it could
Exactly.
be anything. And Andrew came because he had seen that on the agenda. So when one of our department's issues are going to be, we have to make sure that they're notified that that topic is
Well, actually, if you
Any topic.
remember, I thought we had said at the end of last week's meeting that Andrew didn't need to be here because we were going to see how that litigation management thing played out, and that would be it. So,
But-
so I was surprised that he was here after.
Well-
I guess he talked, or you emailed him,
Well,
or
what had happened was I had received an
Bus.
email from Larry Ballantyne, and I responded to that.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I responded to it, I responded to the whole listserv, and that's when, Andrew
he
said...
picked up on it.
He
Yeah.
picked
And
up
he
on it,
picked
felt
up
he
and
should
set
be
up
here.
coming.
So,
Yeah.
These things are going to
So,
happen.
but I think it as practice, if a department, whether it be the cooperative extension or anybody, if there's going to be something said, they should be notified. This is going to be talked. So if there's anything you want to be there
Absolutely.
for to
Yeah.
clarify, or
Yeah.
make sure it's on your agenda so that they're notified ahead of time as well.
Yeah.
And we're not going 2 steps forward to go 1 step back the following week with clarification on something.
well, this is it's not a movable feast, it is a work in progress, and I think
Yes.
we're at least trying to demonstrate I'd say a willingness to do something that would make it more open. And I believe that there was an editorial in the Barnstable Patriot that said that perhaps this would lead to a situation where we got more attention from the public because we're making more information available to encourage people to come to our meetings.
That's right. That's
Well-
very true. I think one other point.
Is the Chinese proverb? No, or be careful what you wish for. There.
Well,
Bill.
I mean, it is all about being transparent,
Yes,
and people
I don't
want more
disagree.
transparency. And even though we feel we're being very transparent and open about things, it's really not clear. And and I think that this is a good faith attempt that we can add to.
Yeah, let me just kind of touch upon some of the things that this changes a little bit. So I listed all of those specific votes, and one of the other issues on some of those is some of these I'm sure don't come in to Kara until Tuesday afternoon, so we're going to have to enforce the deadline a little bit better about really this has to be posted 48 hours in advance. So if you're at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, meeting has to be posted by 1 o'clock on Monday. So
Which brings up an issue of, can we define what an emergency situation would be? Because I could anticipate that there might be emergencies that arise out of the need for carrying on the people's business.
well, but that's kind of to declare an
should be-
emergency is much narrower definition.
That has a
What is it?
definition in the open meeting law.
If
We
it's,
really don't want to call it an
it's
emergency.
not an emergency.
We want to call it something that arrives at the last minute.
Right.
Normally, I
Something
think
timely.
when an agenda, when we have a cutoff point, say it's 12 noon on Friday, anything that's going to be on the agenda needs to be, I just arbitrarily
Right.
said that, 12 noon on Friday. That means if something comes in at 4 and we need to add it, then usually it would be the chairman who would decide whether or not it gets added.
That's right, exactly.
And
Yeah.
so then otherwise, no, it waits until the next week.
And also, don't forget, Bill, most of this, some of these things you're going to delegate to Maggie and I, and that's kind of the next part of this. So the votes things are usually pretty straightforward. There's almost never an emergency nature of them. And I think, Bill, to go back to you, under the charter, an emergency that you would declare has to do with public health and safety, basically. That you have an immediate concern
Well,
for public health and safety.
I wouldn't never want people to believe that we would, if there was an imminent danger to...
Exactly. Well, one of the good examples...
You missed the cutoff date, you gotta wait till next
Well,
week.
one of the good examples was when we submitted the emergency ordinance to the Assembly for the rabies
baiting.
rabies
Exactly.
baiting, when it kind of crossed into Harwich, I think.
That's right.
So,
And by the way...
It obviously bit someone.
oh yeah, got somebody. So what I was going to recommend is, in terms of your delegation, on the supplemental list that I gave you, which is exactly the same items that are on the summary of items, except the votes, those are the types of things that you'll delegate authority to Maggie and I to sign. And basically, it's executing contracts. For example, execute a memorandum of agreement with Frontier Energy Solution for the Clean Energy Workforce Internship and Training Program. And then what I will do is, like with this piece of paper, I will notify you, this is a notice, that that's what Maggie and I did this week. So you'll see that. So you see there's execute a service contract with the two you asked the question of.
I've always believed that once you define what your management operational needs are, we could support
You okay with
by
that?
giving you the authority.
And then the final kind of piece of this is, if you notice under summary of commission, what did I call it?
Summary of actions.
Commissioners' action items, number 3, for personnel actions, because you specifically are the employer, I believe you will have to, and I think this will take I have to kind of work this out with Bob Troy a little bit, take the vote to ratify the actions that Maggie and I took on personnel matters. And that's usually, it's personnel paper, it's the hiring of a person, advertising for a vacant position, a family medical leave thing, all of those things that are in, there just don't happen to be any this year, this week in the list.
As a policy board, I've always felt that would be a direct responsibility of someone who's delegated responsibility to the manager.
Yeah, I'm not, it's not as clear to me in terms of the delegation, whether the delegation should be 100% or you delegate the authority to okay it and then you ratify it. And I think because of the nature of the county commissioners, they are the executive, a little bit different from the town, you need to then ratify that action as a personnel matter.
And Bob can make a determination.
He can say that's okay. Yeah, he'll say that's okay.
Because
That's the question.
perhaps that is covered when the authorization is made for funding a department in their operation, that if someone leaves and replaced, that's all part of meeting the commitment and the ordinance that authorized their ability to perform the function that they have been assigned based upon the allocation and appropriation of funding to do that job. So that's where where the measurement of success at the end of the year, to me, is more of a useful measurement than doing let's say doing it on a weekly basis, or a daily basis. I just think there are a lot of things that, from an administrative management point of view, we could basically say, you do that, and then that's what we're going to get the definition of as to what...
Yeah, what I'll do is I have to draw up a vote, and I'll do that with Bob Troy about the vote to delegate the authority, blah, 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 and to then do the ratification. Those are the 2 things that I'll bring back to you.
One other comment, I think this is really a good improvement. One of the things I would say, like when we know the discussion on wastewater, if we know we're going to take a vote, it would say discussion and vote.
Yes, I agree.
And then it would indicate what the discussion, the topic of the discussion, and what the vote would be. The vote would be to execute or do whatever.
I agree.
So then it becomes clear, because then people could say, oh, they're not just going to talk about it, they're going to vote on something, so maybe I better be there if I have a stake in that issue.
Right. But now we come to another part of this. We've looked at the agenda. We're trying to address the open meeting law, it's a letter. But now if we could, perhaps we should discuss the spirit of it. Part of the spirit is, what time of day should we have a meeting that would encourage people to show up? Because I see representatives of the press here, but we very count on the fingers of one hand outside of a burning issue that we've actually had, let's say, any kind of a crowd. Whenever I go to a selectmen's meeting in Harwich or other places, they're usually people that are just there to observe. And since this program gets cut off at 45 minutes on Saturday morning, we really don't see the whole, everything that we do as part of this meeting. So I think that we ought to start thinking about maybe on a trial basis, maybe once a month meeting at a time other than the morning or the afternoon, but at a time when people who are gainfully employed can join us. I know. You mean
like we did last year? That to such great success?
What was that?
we went out and we went to...
Just because it has failed once.
No, wait a minute. We went out to boards of selectmen.
Oh.
We met at different
venues. We went and took a road show, and you did it in the evening.
Yeah, and let's see, in Bourne, the only person who showed up was
who always shows up, Tom Dorino.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tom.
Bless him. The only person that showed up,
which is nice that he recognized us,
was Elizabeth Taylor, who wasn't neither a selectman or she just happened to be there for another meeting. Oh, what are you guys doing here? Okay, but it was an attempt, to reach out. I'm not suggesting that we change the venue. I'm just suggesting we change the time so that people are aware that, that we would be available. Then that leads into another discussion, and in budget time, I'll have some more detail on it, because I'm going to suggest that we look at the possibility of virtual meetings where perhaps on a regular basis we could meet and discuss, as we're discussing in a philosophical way, how to go forward, but use technology to get, to get people to, let's say, to interact with us while we use, use a virtual
conference.
A webinar.
Webinar.
A webinar
Yeah.
format would be part of it. I want to avoid, the kind of a blog, I'm in a foxhole and I'm shooting at you kind of thing. But I think it's important that we look forward in the next, as we go forward, is to how can we use technology to accommodate, anybody's potential interest in this, and beyond the transparency part, given that the only people that we're transparent to is how we're reported, in the press. I think that that in the budget season I would come up with some some suggested budget issues and some some hardware and stuff that that might make it possible to do that, and then that would lead us to a let's say to a higher level of visibility with the people we're trying to reach. But in order to make that truly work, in my opinion, it would have to have a live element. It couldn't just be, well, go on the web and people can collect it, but it'd have to be at a time when we would reasonably expect people would have the time to pay attention, which again takes a look at, perhaps on a weekend, a Saturday meeting or an evening meeting where we could do that. Because whenever we've gone out to the public, like last Saturday, there was a good crowd there to talk about the wastewater issues.
But so you think you've brought up two issues, separate and distinct a little bit. And I think the answer to both of them, Bill, is you have to have content, and you have to have content that people are interested in.
If I may, I think it's a good point, but I think it can be. We should be considering it when there are going to be like big votes, like when there is a real big issue, even if it's not a vote, but it's going to be a discussion, and we have experts in the room, and they're presenting to us for our education. It's a moment for the public to actually participate and become educated with us, and then being followed up with people can make comments or follow up with letters to us after the fact. But I think that's when those types of reaching out to the public, when they're accessible, especially if there's going to be a vote on a particular area, say this wastewater is rolling down the road, or anything to do with the commission, or anything that we're starting an initiative in a certain area. That's when those things can be highlighted, and I think that's where we'd probably get the most bang for our buck.
I think that would be very useful. You probably get more, let's say, more audience that way. But there is a value, in my opinion, that there be some opportunity for the public to see us have these kinds of discussions on a regular basis, because it isn't always we're going to vote on needs action and we're going to take a vote on this and that.
Right.
I think that for the public to see that we are thoughtfully discussing issues of importance to our constituents gives them a better sense of whether or not we're meeting their
That we
interests.
actually set policy that helps drive the actions of
Because
our
I believe that
departments
when
to
you were
answer
running
these.
for the commissioners, I think I heard you say, gee, people would be really interested in hearing a discussion such as we're having here. And actually, I'm just sort of piggybacking on that idea.
Absolutely.
That you proposed all those many years ago.
And how would we know we were even going to have that discussion, as I stated back then? Because the agenda did not say anything, and even the needs actions, it didn't really kind of, like, what is that, the summary, like approve a summary. So I think that this is an improvement. I think it could even be a little bit more detailed if we can anticipate, some other, offshoots of those, those.
You mean at the end?
Like say even under the wastewater, like we can sort of anticipate that maybe there might be other, we'll veer off into another direction while we're discussing this, such as we did today in just summarizing. That was really a summary of our thoughts and impressions of the Selectmen Association, but
I think people
But we
needed to
could
hear
take
that.
a
but we haven't had a
topic
chance to
with
discuss
a
that.
narrow focus even like buy fresh, buy local.
Well, that's what I
With
see.
community gardens.
Right.
Yeah,
And
or
we
the
can-
Lyme disease
Or
thing.
Lyme,
People
yeah.
would come out of the
Where
woodwork,
they're-
I think, to hear
Yeah,
what's going on.
important issues and how people,
Yeah.
where they, if they want to have be part of a community garden or whatever, then you could have that whole discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Or on Lyme disease, what's out there? What are we doing? What help is available? Where do you call?
Yeah.
Things of that sort.
And given the technology is available, if we schedule that on some periodic basis, like every month,
And
do
just have a
something
call-in.
It's the regularity of it that, I mean, in the beginning, I mean, I've always experienced that in the beginning, if you start a certain style at a certain time, you know, it's very poorly attended in the beginning, but then people start becoming aware, like, gee, every other month on this day, this is when the commissioners are there, this is when we can go and I'm going to make that meeting. It starts to become apparent in people's minds, and they will.
So instead of doing the dog and pony show, which is usually only shown at one selectmen's group, where we
Right.
talk about what we've done, we could be talking about what we're doing on a continuing basis. But the most important thing is, what are we doing to meet our mission, which is to enhance the quality of life for everybody that lives here? And I think that having discussions about our concern about Lyme disease and what we know about it, to have the discussion about what we are trying to apply with regard to moving the wastewater agenda forward, and many other issues that we see could be useful for people to know. I would like to make sure that our focus is on having a venue that actually provides an opportunity to access that without somebody having to drive from Falmouth to
I agree.
Barnstable, or Provincetown to Barnstable.
I agree.
In order to hear it.
Right, and, yeah, I think that's a good point.
Right, yeah, I agree. So I think, well, it's kind of, that segues into what's coming up next, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of the budget session. But I think after this, which is really covers you through January, maybe into February, we can work on putting together these type of, topical commissioners meetings. So we touch on maybe post-symposium, we'll want to do maybe another wastewater thing, which will maybe summarize what the symposium did for it, maybe talk about, where some of the towns may be different from where they are now and how they've come around. Maybe we can do something like that. We can do a Lyme disease one. There's always something to do over at the health department. Human rights, you can always do a human rights piece.
Well,
There's plenty of
and
things.
to get to a
Commission-
lighter tone, still useful for economic development, we could highlight the arts and the contribution the arts make to the
Yeah.
economy. We do have, we're having
This is
some
like a
we're having some
Lego house.
turnover at the Arts Foundation, and hopefully when the new people are in place, we should include them as
So
part of
just to close the loop on this, so I'll need to bring back to you, I'll take that as, this is a good kind of working start. What you'll need to vote on next week, hopefully, is what you're delegating specifically to Maggie and I, and I'll draw up the list of all of the things that are kind of in there. And then we can bring some closure to that. We'll adopt that new format for next week.
Okay. And then we got some feedback.
Yeah, would anyone like to see that
Yeah, I have
proposed
a couple
format
copies
just
here.
for
Yeah,
comment while you're
maybe
here?
you'd like to take it and then give us some
give us your
feedback for
thoughts.
next week.
There's
I mean, do you
there's
think
two
that
that are
this-
stapled.
this helps
can take
you?
mine, too. That's their sleep.
In knowing what we're doing?
And so then this is the
And
next
you could be
thing.
here at a certain time as opposed to...
This is just a draft budget review schedule for, like I said, January.
Oh,
So I haven't gone out
Begins.
yet, so
So we're meeting on Wednesdays to do this, just meeting at,
those are all Wednesday meetings. Those are your meetings in January. Not that much different than it was last year.
4
it's
meetings?
the same to me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
and then of course we'll be sticking in whatever
Where's the IT and all of
actions.
this?
Yeah.
it should be in there somewhere. No. It should be,
Yeah, we should
oh,
put
yeah,
it
there
at
it is,
the
on
end,
January
January
26th.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
we should put that up in the... Did you want to move that to the beginning or early in the
You
process?
know why it's better later?
Yeah.
Because then you hear all the
Hear
other
from
departments' pieces.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
so they can tell us
Yeah.
their
And
concerns,
so
okay.
I'd probably suggest that whatever budget information that I have or am interested in supporting should be integrated with the information technology piece, rather
And-
than just being part of the commission, part of the...
And by then, you'll have the revenue I mean,
Well, yeah, I'll
at
have
the
a
end of the
revenue
year, 6
projection. I'll tell you where
months,
we are and where I think we're going to be. So yeah, I'll put together a revenue picture for you by that time.
probably before we even,
Yeah.
oh, sometime during that, or something along
Yeah,
those lines.
in December I'll be able to send you a revenue picture. It
That's
won't
good.
be through the half of the year, but that's close enough.
Okay, do we have,
So there's that, and so I'll send that out. I'm sure there'll be a couple of departments who'll get back to me and say, oh, could you move me here, there, or whatever. So that's fine.
Okay.
So I have on that. And now I have my weekly report.
oh, good. Even on bated breath, waiting for
Thank you, Mark, for responding so promptly.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're all going to be
Yeah,
trying to do that. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I could ask a question
Yeah.
that's not on the agenda.
No. That's fine.
Related to this?
Maybe it is in
I
here.
have a bunch of supplements to my
Are
weekly
you-
report already.
Okay, so are you going to read it off to? Are you going to be?
Yeah, I was going to read it.
Yeah,
so,
sure. Paraphrase what you
Yeah.
said.
One question that I just, some of these are anecdotal. This is kind of feeling it out a little bit here, and so some of these are anecdotal. So this first one is kind of a story. And one question comes up frequently is, why is the flag at half staff? And actually, Darlene asked me because one of the AmeriCorps kids asked last week, and I said I have no idea. And so I contacted John Blaisdell at the facilities department, and basically he gets a message from the state division of buildings. I think it's the State House event staff, and they basically say that the governor has ordered the flag to half staff. In last week it was on, I think it was on Tuesday, it was to honor Specialist Jonathan M. Curtis of Belmont, who was killed in Afghanistan on November 1st, 2010. So the only two people apparently who can order the flag to half staff are the President of the United States, and the governor can do it as well. And so we get a message periodically when the flag's supposed to be at half staff that tells us put the flag at half staff.
So unfortunately, if it's not a quote unquote famous person, we can sometimes assume that a flag at half staff indicates probably one of our warriors, one of our
Usually
soldiers.
it's for that. I would say though that if we were here and someone notable to us was to pass away, that we would probably put blinders on and say we should bring the county flags to half staff because
Yes.
that's a person near and dear to the county's heart. Even
Or
though
wouldn't we do that?
we would. That's what I'm saying. I don't think we want to say that too publicly, but
You just
we
did.
probably would. But yeah, but
And I think
officially
that we
the
would
only
be given
two.
forgiveness for that.
Yeah, maybe what we do is you have to
Sin
ask the
bravely, but bleed
governor
more
to do
bravely
that in
than
Barnstable
Yes,
County.
and maybe that would be a good. That's a good follow-up point.
One of the groups that knows this very well inside and out are the veterans.
Oh, of course,
people.
yeah.
And
Oh,
they
yeah.
know exactly when, obviously, the governor. At any other time, it's very restrictive
It
as
is.
to how you can
Yeah.
how
There's
you
certain
can lower
rules
the
as to how to
flag.
do it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't just really do it.
Maybe we should look into it.
I did actually. I looked up rules for displaying the flag
Oh.
and who can order it to have staff and things.
Okay.
So I think you're right. I think the process would have you'd have to ask the governor
Yeah.
if he would order the flag, and I think he can do it by region. He can say, yeah, in Barnstable County, I'm ordering the flag to have staff in honor of blah blah blah.
Right.
We had the Health and Environment Department sponsored the employee flu clinic this week, which provided seasonal flu shots to employees. And I do want to mention they did a great job. This year they had an online registration process that was set up, and it worked very well. It was very user friendly. I did give some feedback to George when I went through it, so because I used it and worked very well. So. That was, I think, a success this week. AmeriCorps was working on developing their Martin Luther King Day 2011 project event. That's always a big, they do it as a group project all together. They were soliciting project ideas from municipalities, nonprofits, and community organizations. And this year, or next year, the focus is on meeting unfulfilled community needs, either in environment or in human services. So Darlene will be putting together the final project announcement. They're putting it together even as we speak. I mentioned that, maybe I mentioned to you that I viewed a webinar presented by Maya on general liability that Mike Cusack, the underwriter for Maya, did. It was a tremendous webinar. It was very informative, and there'll be future ones on property insurance and auto insurance for municipalities. So I wanted to mention that. And I do have the PowerPoint slides from that, so I can share them with you just so you
Maya's
see what
moving
that's
in that
about.
direction, more of the
Yeah.
webinars rather than holding meetings around the state.
For those types of things, yeah. They're still doing many of their professional development series training where you go live and you have exercises that you do with other people who are attending. But for those, that's a good way to do those types of things.
Yeah, NACO is also doing that. I think I've shared some of them.
Yep, exactly, yeah. I am meeting with Jerry Rappaport, who's here sometimes. She's also at the Assembly. She's with the Cape Cod League of Women Voters. And a number of years ago, they did an excellent kind of pamphlet summary on the county. It's like an org chart and describes in brief what we do and who we are. Well, they're going to redo that. So I'm going to meet with her on Friday and go over the kind of organization, the way the county is right now, and any changes from the previous one.
We got to talk about a rollout of that when they get that done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll coordinate with them. We're continuing our mandatory employee training series on preventing sexual harassment in the workplace. We already had one session that we did, and the next session it will be offered for county employees on December 9th. There are four sessions available. I think 8:30, 10:30. Don't quote me. 1 and 3 or something like that. So if you're interested in attending that, it's mandatory, so all employees are going to have to attend it. So it doesn't include you because you're elected officials, but you're certainly welcome.
We're special, aren't we special employees?
You are special employees, but you're elected officials, so you're exempt from a lot of these rules. But you're certainly welcome to attend if you would like.
I doubt that. I think that civil rights.
You're exempt from the attendance, not from breaking
Right,
the law.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I was surprised
Be
at-
clear about that, Bill.
That's right.
When I was doing the academic coaching up at Babson, I was really surprised that that I thought that they would be leading edge in understanding what the law was.
Right.
And they are very the kids were very fuzzy on it, even though they're being exposed to it as part of the the emphasis on ethics up there. So yeah, this is something that you need to persist on.
Yeah, we do, and that's something that, the good news is we also get credit from Maya from holding mandatory trainings for your employees. So it's 1% or 2% off your general liability insurance, so that's good. I do have a couple of supplements to my report already that aren't on there. John Blaisdell let me know that the Barnstable Fire Department will be having an open house on Saturday, November 20th from 9 to 1 o'clock. They will be having demonstrations, and part of that will be performing an auto extrication. So that sounds like the jaws of life will be involved. Excellent.
Which fire district is that?
That's the one right here, our neighbors.
Okay, the West
Chief Crosby. And they were just letting us know that they're going to have that vehicle that they're using in the auto extrication parked over here. Just to let you know. So they're having an open house on Saturday, November 20th, 9 to 1 o'clock. So if you want to attend that. I want to let you know that I received a letter in response to our DCAM letter that provided us control and supervision of the gym conversion to the health lab project by DCAM. So that's very good news.
Right.
We're
That's
happy
right.
with that. So
That's huge.
John is working on moving forward with the permits, and we'll be bidding the project very shortly. So that's good news on that. And what was my other thing? Oh, and I wanted to mention one other thing that AmeriCorps is doing. They have submitted their continuation proposal for the 2011-2012 AmeriCorps program. It's due to the state by September 8th. There's no additional cost to the county. It's a continuation application, so it's not competitive. But Darlene plans to request 6 additional members through the main PER program to serve under the Natural Resource Management and Disaster Preparedness and Response focus area. And she says that their primary service activity will be fire management projects, which may include fuel reduction, prescriptive burning, wildfire training, trail maintenance projects, and they will be serving with the Cape Cod National Seashore Fire Crew. So they'll be doing fire prevention, basically, forest fire prevention.
So important, the money that we put into that, what was it, land management planning, those grants that come, that Bill Clark has been recommending, we are overdue for serious problem in that regard.
And we should extend our thanks to the National Park Service and George, because the National Park Service is going to put those 6 people up. It will be a residential program, and they will pay for the training and the cash match and all the additional costs, those supplementary costs that are associated with that. So I hit Darlene that I'm sure that you guys will support their application in that regard. So that's good. I think that's good.
For that?
No, I don't believe so, Bill.
I think it's a good idea.
Yep. And then the final thing that I did want to mention, actually not the final thing, and one other thing, but I also received a report from Tom Cambereri, on our perchlorate issue at the Mary Dunn Wells over near the Fire Training Academy, and they were having some issues with perchlorate. They couldn't figure out where they were coming from or why they were coming from. And it turns out the summary of this report is the perchlorate is coming from the chlorine that's used to treat the water. So apparently after a period of time, perchlorate forms in the chlorine and then dissipates, of course, but we were getting particularly somewhat higher reading, this 0.25 parts per billion. I don't want to alarm anybody, which is our threshold for, remember, turning over the lease contract for the generator. And we were consistently over that. We couldn't figure out why, and it turns out Tom Cambereri did a little analysis, and I give him credit for that. Turns out it's coming from the chlorine treatment of the water well itself. So they're going to do some more testing. They're going to change the way they do things, I think, a little bit over there.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
It is interesting. I'll leave that with you. You can take a look at it. But that's good news for us. So we just have to kind of determine. We have a 6-month period where then we have to attain that below 0.25 parts per billion on a consistent basis. So I've asked Tom if that means we can kind of start that clock
Could you make
ticking.
copies for all this?
I can, yeah. I actually can send it to you electronically.
Yeah.
I have it
Why don't you do that?
So, and then my final thing is it's on a personal note.
Mark, before you start, could I just take 30 seconds?
Yeah,
to make
sure.
change? Okay, at your leisure, sir.
And the last thing I wanted to note, and it's a personal note, I just want to wish Jim Quirk a speedy and full recovery. Jim is board counsel for the retirement board, and he had heart surgery last week, so I wanted to wish him well. And just on your note, you received a couple weeks ago an email from Kara about registering for the MMA annual conference in January, so there's a couple things you needed to do. Either do it through her with your credit card or do it on your own with your credit card. They just changed the way they're
I already
registered.
took care of that.
Good.
And I
You'll have to.
Good.
Okay, I just want to report on a couple of things. I had occasion to be asked to interview candidates to serve on the board of directors of the Massachusetts Selectmen's Association. So we interviewed 14 candidates the other day. It's grueling, I must say. But the reason I mention it is because of the number of towns around the Commonwealth who are so actively engaged in sharing services and doing regionalization. I was really astounded that it's right at the forefront everywhere. And towns, about 3 or 4 towns, are now sharing EMS services and fire services as well, fire and rescue. They're working on police services, which is a little harder to do. they're all working on like building inspections, things that seem so obvious, you know, where they can share personnel like that. And I just, that was one of my questions that I was going to ask these candidates, you know, in terms of what they see as the critical issues and priorities for boards of selectmen around the state. And I didn't even have to ask most of them that. They came right out with it, and they are really moving along as boards. And I asked them, I said, what do you think your greatest roadblock is in getting towns to do that? And they said, the person that you really have to have on board, it's so obvious, is the town manager or the town administrator. If that person is not part of the process, it will never happen. And that's what we've always said here, it's getting the towns on board that is the difficult part, and having them work with you to move that forward. So I thought that was pretty interesting to learn that from around the state.
And to support that, this has been, I think I've reported it, this has been a topic at the municipal and regional administrative committee that I serve on, that there is a better attitude with regard to doing it. They were instrumental in getting that inter-municipal agreement passed that allows a lot of this to happen, because they recognize that that there was a value. But at that group, we're seen as a umbrella organization that could make it happen. And in other parts of the country, the fact that there is an existing regional entity or government, that it provides a natural opportunity for these these inter-municipal and regional activities to occur. And indeed, in our charter, I believe that that we offer that opportunity to the towns that that are here.
And the other piece to it was regional dispatch. That was another priority that the towns are working on. And we all know that there's many more dispatch centers than there should be, and trying to narrow that down.
Most of these candidates were selectmen?
They're all selectmen.
They're all selectmen.
All selectmen. Well, some were selectmen currently on the board, and others were selectmen who wanted to be on the board.
Right.
Which was good, because it's hard to get people to want to serve on boards like that.
Oh, yeah.
And to see that there were 7 people out of the blue, who some of them were very new selectmen in certain instances. But it was a pretty interesting experience to do that. The other thing I wanted to mention is something that came up at the Falmouth town meeting the night before, both nights actually. On the warrant were the articles to adopt the local option tax for hotel motel. There was another article to file a home rule petition to be able to tax the vacation rentals and the timeshares. And the other one was the meals tax. The two that passed were the meals tax and the home rule petition, which of course will sit in committee. Provincetown has been filing them every year for 3 years, and they go to committee, and that's the end, and they refile it. But the one on the hotel motel is the one that caused the most debate for the longest time and had the most resistance. And if you remember, the governor was here, I think it was in August or September, over in the Cape Codder, I think, not the Cape Codder.
It was the restaurant.
The Radisson. It was at the Radisson.
The Radisson.
The Cape Cod Selectmen and Councilors Association met. And we were trying to convince the governor that this is a good thing. And the legislature has absolutely no interest, or hasn't shown any interest in supporting this as a local option. And the whole idea is to use the expression level the playing field. And some of the towns on the lower Cape will say that you have on a website, you have all these second homes or properties that are available for rental. Then you have all the different B&Bs and hotels, or motels, hotels, whatever. And they're paying the tax. And people go on these websites and they say, well, gee, there's 6 of us, and we can rent a house cheaper for the weekend than we can if we go to a hotel or a B&B, because they don't pay the tax. So we were really trying to convince the governor that we need him on our side to make this happen. And he understood, I think, by the end of the meeting. He really did have an understanding. But it's the legislature. And at the town meeting last night, they said if the county could help the towns move forward in unison, and maybe we all get together and say, look, this is a good thing, And because it has to be done town by town, because it's taxed town by town. So you can't, I don't think the county can file a tax that would impose this on any town. You can't do it that way. But maybe we could do something
Of a support.
through the Cape Selectmen and Councilors Association for all the towns on the Cape to get together at the same time
Ed Lewis would love that.
and send it up to the legislature and go up there and lobby some of them and say, look, we really need this. This is really,
Should we poll our legislative delegation to see how much
that's a
support?
good idea.
Well,
Why
the
don't we
first thing
do
to
that?
is, do you have
Huh?
a piece of legislation? There must be a piece
Yeah.
of legislation.
There
Yeah.
is.
So-
I have one in my
Yeah.
car.
Yeah, there is
Yeah.
legislation.
So I think
and-
we should poll our legislative delegation.
I
to see
thought
how
that
much
was,
support
it was Vicki Lowell, actually, a former county commissioner, who stood up and said, you know, here's an issue that the county could really be helpful on. If the county could help coordinate this.
Well,
And
I think the first step is to poll the legislative delegation and take that as, and then the next step would be what we do with that, and then go use the Selectmen's Association to, you know,
To be
act
the
as a-
vehicle
be a
to
vehicle,
get
and
behind
we're
it.
all working together on it.
Yeah, if I
Okay.
can, I believe that the Cape delegation has submitted that legislation, I think even through Cleon.
it has to be done by the town.
Right. But there
They
is.
can sponsor it,
Right.
but it has, yeah.
Right, and I think it was
Yeah.
sponsored, and it does fall on deaf ears, and the feeling comes back that there are so many legislators in the body that have second homes that they rent.
Doesn't a new Congressman, Bill Keating, own a house in Bourne? Maybe
Yeah.
we ought to get him on board.
I know, so, I mean,
didn't want-
that's their feeling on it.
I didn't want to say that
I know,
over.
and I'm not going to
No,
imply,
you
but
can,
I mean,
but I didn't
and I'm
want
not,
Yes,
I'm not
right.
implying that that's true.
No,
that
that
is the
is-
resistance. That's probably the more jaundiced eye look at it, but I do think that it is something that, I mean, most of the boards of selectmen that do support this see the fairness in it. If you're going to do one-on-one business that provides that service and the other one is being exempt, it's time to get it
Yeah,
from below
it
the
is.
radar and onto the screen and
The number
everybody
of,
be...
we used to have 2,200 hotel rooms in Falmouth, and now we have 1,300. They've
Yeah.
all gone to timeshares.
Yep.
Well, maybe you make it a local option. So, but
Well, that's, I
down
think
here,
that-
you
Well,
can
these are
make it a
things that we
local
could look
option
at.
subject to the approval of the county commissioners, so you just do it on a regional basis.
I don't think you can tax that way.
You
I don't
make
think
it-
you can.
They're all local options, aren't they? You can choose to
Yeah, it
pick
is a
the...
local-
No, but those were voted by the legislature as part of the municipal relief package.
No, but I mean, it has to go through the legislature.
Yeah,
But
it
the
has to
key
go
so
You mean
that-
do it?
But the ability to actually
Well, we need to talk to the
tax those
delegation.
Yeah.
private homes, I'm
That's
not
the
sure it
first step.
exists. You can do the home rule, you can do the meals tax, and you can do the room tax, but that room tax doesn't include, and that's the
Oh, so
the rub
change
there.
it.
It's to
That's a
get them
Yeah, change
in
the
on that
definition.
legislation that it
Well,
includes that.
again, if we make a first step to find out where the legislative delegation is, then the
Okay.
second step is to, is to move forward based upon what we know.
Well, you have a new you have a new delegation, basically.
Right.
So we have to talk to them. And
Okay.
I believe that, you know, that Senator-elect Wolf would be much in favor of this because he believes that, you know, that if
Right.
we,
Well,
I think to use his words, if we have identified something that is of value to people and that they want it, then it's up to the
Us to
legislative
respond to it.
delegation to respond to it.
So I think the November meeting of the Cape Selectmen's Association is coming up fairly soon. Why don't we get on their agenda?
December.
Must
You mean
be-
December,
yeah,
because we just
Oh,
had
we
it
already
last
had the
week.
December,
November,
yeah.
didn't we?
December.
But that's a party, I think,
Yeah, I
December
don't know what they
meeting.
do. Well, you could just mention
They
it.
decided not
This
to have
is-
a party.
Oh, they're not going to have a
No,
party?
They decided not to have a
But
party.
if
Okay.
you have the piece of legislation, we should look at that. And then if you like that
Right.
legislation, we should endorse it.
I agree.
And then we send out a letter to all the boards
It's
of
December
selectmen
10th. December 10th at 7:30
And then-
at Brookside.
and the
So
town
let's
council.
get on the agenda.
And you ask all of the boards of selectmen to endorse that legislation
Mm-hmm.
and authorize, us to submit it to the legislative delegation for sponsorship. That's what
Yeah.
you're really asking them to do.
Yeah.
And of course, the Senate President's office is key.
Yeah.
But see, that's the only thing, Bill. I agree with you. You have to go with the delegation, but sometimes you want to go collectively. So that
Well, that's, yeah,
if you
I
have
think-
So let's
15
find out what
towns
we're
behind
talking
you, it's
But
going to be hard
I've-
for them to say, "Well, we don't really
But
think
we
that's
need to
priority."
find out from council if this, if this would have to be a home rule petition, but but they could only be voted on by a town meeting.
Yes, that's true, but
And then they go to the legislature from town meeting. So I don't know.
No, the selectmen are voting to endorse the legislation. They couldn't be voting to adopt the.
Right, exactly.
Right.
They're going to
It's
vote
just
to
that
endorse
Yeah,
it.
because
component
there's no way
is not
that's-
in the legislation, and that's
There's no way this is going to get approved before next spring town meeting.
No,
Right.
no.
You know, if you get it done before July 1st, you'll be doing really well.
right.
And that's okay. I mean,
Oh, yeah, of course.
But it wouldn't happen if town by town. It wouldn't happen until July
Yeah.
anyway, because if you
You're
have
right,
to have
exactly.
approved it this fall town meeting to
Right.
have it begin January 1.
So in order to get on, what do we do to get on the agenda? Do you,
We talked to Mr. Dunford.
And Diane Cooney.
And Diane
She's the
Cooney, yeah.
secretary.
That's
She,
right.
you go to her and she'll put it through.
Yeah.
well, the chairman does have something to do with.
Yeah, he does, but she'll forward it to him and deal with that.
See how that goes in.
And check with Larry and Ed Lewis.
Ed Lewis.
And see if they would, what their interest is too. I bet you they like that.
So which one of us should do that?
You want to do that?
I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll call Ed Lewis.
You'd love
All
it,
right,
yeah.
that's great. All right.
Who's
Okay,
contacting
I have,
Diane? You?
You're going to contact Diane and
Diane
Ed
too?
Lewis and the
Okay,
rest of them?
I'll take care of all of that.
Okay.
Excellent. What do you have, Sheila?
I'll give you what I like. Well, since we all have already reviewed the Selectmen's Association meeting ad nauseam, we won't go there,
No.
but we're all there. And I did attend the National Seashore Advisory since I am a member representative on that. And it is pretty stunning, how really everything that's going on with the National Seashore does have something to do with the county and how we're working as partners going forward. They've had to deal with their wind turbine issue, their environmental issues, their water issues, and dare I say, even their pesticide control issues. So we had a discussion about that. It was not as vigorous as the ones that have gone on in the past couple of months. It's a bi-monthly meeting, so they had much input from public on the turbines, much to do with the dune shacks, all of these things that they're involved in. God, it just went out of my head. What we did discuss was the ocean management, because Rich Delaney is the chair of the National Seashore Advisory, and he was basically the chair of the ocean management plan that evolved from the Act, which did fight for regional control over issues that led to our DCPC. And just talking about the importance of that. So it was a matter of really bringing the advisory board itself up to speed on that role and where that's at and what it means for everyone. So, I love that group because it's the people of the National Seashore are really probably the most real people you're going to want to get. And George Price, for all of the attacks he falls under, right, being superintendent, he is truly I think a great steward of the National Seashore and of the park system, and as they all are. So having said that, and then this morning, because I knew everybody was at meetings, I did stop by the Human Rights Academy that was being held over at Burgess Camp Burgess in Sandwich today. And this is their biannual meeting with all of the high school students that participate in the Human Rights Academy that they sponsor. And it is a great piece of work that our Human Rights Commission works on. This is having come from a Catholic school, that these things were always sort of part of the curriculum, making you aware of those. That's when social theology was in vogue, especially. This it supplements the public school curriculum that doesn't offer these types of things anymore. And to hear these kids get up and take a particular topic of plight around the world or within our own country is really, I think, a fine thing. And I remember, and I'm sure you do, since I think you were all Catholic school kids, or had this type of curriculum. it helps, even though years go by and you're not maybe an activist in some sort of human rights, it does set your moral compass and your awareness of those, that we are part of a bigger picture. So, and each year it becomes more professional looking, and these kids are really engaged, and they've really sort of got it down now. So it was a great thing to attend, and I gave your support that I was there just representing the commissioners and how we support the Human Rights Academy and the commission. So that was appreciated. And I think that's it. I think everything else that I've been up to you're aware of.
Okay.
And if there isn't...
you forgot that we both went to the watershed and wastewater that were run by the League of Women Voters on Saturday.
Pardon me, Bill, we did do that.
Yeah,
and
it was a wonderful...
it was a wonderful thing, and it was well attended. And for those in the public, we will take this opportunity that the Cape Cod Commission and the county itself now has a regional wastewater plan, which sort of looks at the entire wastewater situation, and that we do have this big problem, but if we can reduce, at least 40% of that problem's nitrogen, doesn't mean that we're sewering, and it doesn't mean that, we're making ourselves, that we will then transform into something else. So, but now to take the boundaries of towns out of it, they're doing watershed by watershed and bringing those towns together. So I encourage the public to go on capecodcommission.org to look at their watershed series and try to attend one of those when it's in your area, because it's most informative. And I think the more people that become aware that there is a path forward, it's a regional problem, it has a regional solution, and then we can maybe get greater consensus from the public on how we should approach the issue. And also, because last meeting, that hearing, now that you've mentioned it, there was that legislation, the legislators that are on that committee looking at the funding issues around wastewater around the state, headed up by Senator Eldridge, and there was a presentation. The wastewater presentation was given by Paul Niedzwiecki, who sits on that board. They took testimony, and I did indicate that that part of the problem is that the onus is put on the individual towns, even though many of the individual towns, I think, in the area of wastewater in particular, not that they're ready to concede any other controls, and not that they would concede all control, would like to can see more and more that there is a regional approach and would like it taken off their back. But by law they can't, because the Department of Environment and Energy puts the onus on the individual towns. So I said, if it can be given that these towns can work in a regional way, since this is a region that is a one, particularly Cape Cod is a unique region in that it is 2/3 of the Massachusetts coastline. It is this peninsula that sticks out like an island onto itself. That would be helpful. And then they were just saying that, what is the problem down here with building consensus? And I basically said, everybody sort of sees the problem. I mean, even the pedestrian on the street can recognize that the eelgrass isn't there, and if there was treatment, it comes back. It comes down to the money. So when these formulas are being done, the money, federal and state money, is a must. So that's what I stated on your behalf. I'm sure you can look at the record and take issue with anything else. But that was a very well attended, actually much more.
And we owe a debt of gratitude to the League of Women Voters who went there, and I believe that that Steve had recorded it, and we might point out to the public that if they're interested in let's say in seeing a copy of the program, they can get a copy of the DVD from the League of Women Voters. But I believe that it's posted on the web.
It is posted on the internet. I don't believe it's linked directly to the League of Women Voters site. It will be, but if you'd like to see it, you would go to YouTube and search for League of Women Voters Cape Cod and wastewater, and that should come up.
And for those who who want to see the whole thing, I thought that both Paul Niedzwiecki and Brian Howes had some very interesting points. But I was also interested and hearing from that woman from the Buzzards Bay Coalition.
Yes.
There was a lot of, let's say, interesting comments with regard to concerns that they have up there, because there's a need of seeing that our border town, Bourne, has to have a significant interaction with Wareham, because Wareham is a contributor to it, and there needs to be, let's say, bring them, to sort of bring them into the fold with regard to the contribution they're making to Buzzard, to the issues at Buzzard Bay as well as Buttermilk Bay. And from what I gather in talking to to that gal offline, that they are making some progress with Wareham. I always point out that if you come across the Cohasset Narrows, you'll see the beach at at the end of Electric Avenue in Bourne, and if you turn around and look at Wareham, you see junkyards and you see paving down to the down to the water. So those are all things that I bring up to people who say we ought to be more developmentally, more supportive of development like we do in Plymouth County. I said, well, get junkyards.
Sounds like a shot at Wareham.
No, but what I think the bottom line is that association has, pretty good experience with working with their towns, their neighboring towns, and that's a good thing.
And they're members.
Yes, and they also see the regional approach as a solution, and she was basically, stating that is something that would be a benefit.
Okay. I have something more pedestrian to bring up. Town councilor and candidate, in whose council area we sit, is very interested in, at some time in the near future, talking about issues with regard to parking that support commercial, let's say, some of the employees and that work across the street here, and I told her that I would bring it up, and that I would encourage her to come, for all of us, to have a conversation with regard to that, and some other issues, as we are the landlords here, and I want to make sure that we're open to hearing from her. But more importantly, that we figure out a way of easily communicating with her, because her concerns and her advocacy that is well noted for for constituents is recognized, and I would want to make sure that she knew that we would do everything we could that we stay at a level of quality communication. I haven't heard back from the Barnstable Village Association, but I had asked them to find out how much support they had in the village with regard to some of the things that they're asking for before they go forward, and so the ball is more or less in their court.
We should invite Ann, and it's Lee.
Well, yeah, Lee Hill.
Lee Hill, who is the head of the association.
That might not be a bad idea, but I think the first step is Ann has asked for some contact with us, and I'm going to suggest that we encourage that either verbally or or
I think we should put her on, invite her in, since she is the the counselor for this area. And I think Ann is a great advocate for her area. I think she's a good town councilor. Not that I wouldn't invite her if I didn't think that, but I think she serves her people really well. Yes, I think that's true. But Ann is particularly on the job. So, from what I can gather, I missed something.
Do I take from that I could give her a call and tell her that we'd like to have
Is there anything else? Yeah,
I have two other things that I neglected to give you. These are for signature. One is the contract with the state for the DA's office space that we lease to the DA. We get $20,000 for that. And I just finished this before I came in. That's our union contract agreement for this year through 2013 fiscal year. And I just went through it and made sure everything that's in it is supposed to be in it, and everything that's not supposed to be in it is not in it, and it's fine for you to sign.
Okay.
Okay. With that, this is added. I'm sorry.
Is there any other business to come before us? Not, we can go into recess in preparation for the Assembly of Delegates.
No
meeting next week?
No meeting
Our
next
next
week,
meeting
the day
will
before
be
Thanksgiving.
God, it's the day before
December
Thanksgiving.
1st.
Yeah, next week is Thanksgiving.
And
So
we
happy
will
Thanksgiving,
return-
everyone.
Yes, happy
Yes,
Thanksgiving.
the same.
Happy Thanksgiving
To all
you
of
too.
you.
To all our friends of the
Oh.
press.
Yes,
Noah Shelter's having their
telephone.
health on the 15th of December.
Right.
Yes.
I'm
And I
going
believe
to
we're-
sign up.
Yeah, we're all on that.
Did we all get a letter from Mary?
Yeah, I think we did, but
I
I saw,
didn't get one, no.
ironically, I saw Rick Brigham over at C3 TV.
Oh.
And when I went home, the letter was waiting for me.
Yeah.
So he basically put a gun to my head and said,
Yeah.
you're coming, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we've all.
So our next meeting is December 1st, if you can believe that. So, and I have a
Unbelievable.
1 o'clock start time with the Human Rights Committee.
Committee, okay.
What was the other thing you said to put on the agenda?
Ann Kennedy.
No.
No.
No, not yet.
Wait a
There
second.
was something else you mentioned.
Yes, December 1st,
Yeah.
the RFQ.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, and also, we have to finish Paul's thing.
You do, yes.
We did not finish, I cannot believe that's going to be December 1st.
Yeah, in time
We
flies.
might,
HRC.
and that is
County,
because
Maggie, okay.
if it's slid in here, I'm gonna
And I will
absolutely-
put Paul's thing down there if you can get to it.
Yeah, we will get to it. We'll get to it even before that. I can't, this is a disgrace.
Is this the executive piece or the open piece?
This is the,
We've already
This
had
is-
an executive session.
Well, I mean, in some ways, that
It's-
presentation of his, that was his, that
that,
could have
yeah,
been
no,
open.
we need to have
So
the
you need to
executive
do your
session.
executive
Right.
session.
Yeah.
So we could do that
we
next week.
Could we do that next week?
Yeah.
Because I gotta get
Not
that
next
done.
week, the week
But
after.
could we schedule it on a date,
On
not
the
necessarily
12th, the first.
Wednesday?
Oh, you
No.
can, well, you can
I'd like to get
schedule
it
it.
done so that on the 1st we can go forward, we can finalize it.
Oh, that's why we're not meeting next week.
We're not
Right.
meeting next
So
week.
can we do a special
You
meeting?
have to post a meeting.
Yeah,
You have to
we
adjourn
can-
an open session, and then you can go into executive.
Can we post a
But you have to do
meeting
Yeah.
like Monday or Tuesday, if it's more convenient for people?
Monday the 29th or the 30th.
Let's see.
It's up to you, just let me know.
And I will get that and I'll tell you my problem.
Monday's the, oh, that's December.
So-
Monday's the 29th. We could do the 29th.
I can do the 29th.
Oh, wait a minute. Something, oh, we have a retirement board at 11 on Monday.
Oh yeah, we do.
Well, we
On
could do it
Monday.
early.
So we could do it earlier,
You could do it earlier, so
We
a
could do
special
it
county
at-
commissioners meeting,
say 9:30.
11,
That's fine for me. Can you do that?
9:30 on Monday? Can you do that?
Yeah, I have that.
Okay, well, let's do it on Monday then.
Madam
Thank you.
Chairman, so this
It was supposed to be
is
done months
An
ago.
executive
special,
session,
so yeah, it's convened, and then
and convene an
executive
open session,
convene
but
and then
then go
executive
into open
session.
session.
to discuss,
Personnel matters.
I think we have to be more specific.
No,
I don't think so.
no, because you can't.
not right now, we
No,
don't.
you can't.
No.
It's actually to,
It's not to discuss the
it's not to discuss performance,
or
because you can't,
character.
this is
It's the-
simply to prepare a draft evaluation
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
for the executive director.
okay.
That's what it is,
With 9:30?
9:30. How's that? Here's another one, Sheila.
Oh my God!
Well, I
I
think,
must be half, I don't know why, it's on good stuff. Okay,
oh, and this has to go to the assembly?
yes. Could
Are you
Yes.
taking it down?
Are you going to the assembly?
He's
There's-
going.
Yeah,
I may not be able to make it because I was supposed to meet with somebody at
Is this
3 and I think it's gonna be.
Craigville Beach?
Yes, the
Okay, so we haven't-
DCPC, but that has been
we're
approved.
submitting it today.
We're just submitting
Yes,
it, there's
we're
not,
submitting it.
So you're on your own today, Bill.
Administrative question. There was some question that was raised by Lon Bergstrom that this has been voted on before. I assured him that the DCPC that was voted on before
Was
was the
Ocean
one that was
Management.
rejected by
The
the
town.
town council, and that they had resubmitted it for, let's see, they had essentially asked the Cape Cod Commission to reintroduce it, and that's what this represents.
That's
I believe
right.
that's correct.
that's right.
Oh, okay.
Just so I have it
What
clear.
what happened, to be clear, and you can maybe help me out here, is it was passed for the town to handle their DCPC and take care of their zoning and that sort of thing. It went the whole year, so therefore it became defunct. And then there was an effort for, there was a discussion among the council that this could be taken care of within our own zoning board. and we could do this. But the fact is, it never got to be done, and nobody could come to consensus. So it was brought up again before the town council to have it initiated one more time. It missed by one vote, and that person's vote would have been a yay, but they had to recuse themselves. So in the hearing of the Cape Cod Commission, many of those councilors came before and testified of their actually giving up their power of doing their own regulations under the DCPC and are leaving it up to the Cape Cod Commission. So it is.
So we have the happy circumstances of both having voted for the same thing.
Exactly.
You did vote for this, right?
I did indeed, and I voted for it when I was on the Assembly. So here we are again.
The other thing is tonight at 7 o'clock, the Board of Selectmen and their solid waste group are making a presentation on solid waste for the county. I mean, for the whole
Yes,
town.
Mr. Garino.
And that's at
It's
at the Upper Cape Technical School.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Waking up there, I'm going to go by the annual meeting of the Cape Health, whatever.
Community Health Center
Health
of Cape Cod.
Do you happen to know where Commercial Street is in that?
It's, you know where Roche's grocery store, it's in that section, it's back there,
Back there?
on that side of Mashpee Commons. So when you go around the Rotary and you're heading down Route 28,
Is it just beyond there on the left?
yeah, it's on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
You go
Right,
in
it's
as
just
if you
beyond
were
there on the
going to
left,
Roche
yeah.
Brothers.
Yeah,
and, yeah.
because- yeah,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
We already did.
Oh, we did?
We're in
So we done?
recess.
Are
We're
you
in
out?
recess.
Oh, you were in
were.
recess. Are you
Are
on?
we?
Yeah.
We were.
You weren't down?
We
No.
were, but
All right, I have to change the time.
we never stopped talking, so now we
Okay,
are.
so now we're
The
officially in
congenital
resource.
defect of politics.
Okay.